everybody, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Just as a special treat, we're actually streaming this one, I can see, across pretty much all the platforms. So we're out on X/Twitter, Rumble, Getter, Facebook, and my good old pals over at YouTube. Yes, YouTube, the home of censorship. We are putting this one out here because I can't see they can give. I don't see how they're going to give me a strike based on what we're going to be chatting to our special guest about. But who knows? It's a world of surprise. So yes, thanks to those of you joining, and as always, I want to thank those people who listen to this. Although this is obviously video we're putting out, we do stick it out as an audio as well, and I do know that many people listen to that. So if whether you're watching us or whether you're listening to us, I hope you enjoy it. Just a couple of things in point of order before we kick off. A gentle reminder that in 1 month's time, the Labour budget is coming, and they're coming for you. So if you want to protect your resources, whatever wealth you have, one way to do that is to visit my pals over at Gold Bullion Partners, link below, and have a chat with Nick over there and see if he can give you a bit of advice. I mean, the one thing that's absolutely clear to me is that they are coming for whatever reserves we have. They want that. So do check that out. Okay, so that's first thing to say. Second thing to say is I do hope that you've subscribed now to my Substack. Lots of content going out over there, some of it exclusive. So if you want to get all the good stuff, all the spicy stuff, that's the best place to go. So look, that being said, one of the pleasures of doing this show with you all is that I get to introduce some great people to you who you may not know or may not be very familiar with, and that's good because it hopefully broadens your perspectives on all kinds of things as well. And you know me, I go down lots of different rabbit holes. I love going down rabbit holes to find more truths out, basically, simple as that. And there's a particular topic area that I want to get into this evening, right now, for the next 55 minutes or so. And I'm really pleased that to set it up, I mean, I've been very interested, and you've probably listened to some of the podcasts about, well, the whole issue of, there were giants on the earth in those days, and the whole issue of Nephilim and all of that there, and so much other issues surrounding that. And that's why I'm really pleased to introduce to you all our special guest this evening, a guy called L.A. Marzulli, if I pronounced it right. Yeah, he's there. Hi. That's the Irish pronunciation.
That's fine. Marzulli. That's all. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, listen, thanks very much for joining us. I do appreciate that. We were just saying before we came on air, I've been very concerned watching on social media mostly the coverage of the absolutely catastrophic flooding in parts of I think it's North Carolina is one of those LA. I mean, it's kind of horrific, and yet I heard Joe Biden saying that look, there's nothing more we can do about it, and it looks apocalyptic. What's your take on it?
Well, I have to be careful what I say because YouTube might give us a strike if we're not careful.
That's right. Yeah.
From what I'm hearing, it's a 1,000-year flood. It's absolutely catastrophic, completely catastrophic.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of thousands of people without power. There's a lot of dead people. They still don't know the number yet. This is really unbelievable. And, it's just without trying to get too political, but let's face it, we're giving billions of dollars to this ridiculous war in Ukraine.
Yep.
We have no coverage. We have no idea. The average guy on the street has no idea what's going on. So here we have a real emergency in our country. And where is the government? Where is that funding to help the people without power, without food, who've lost basically everything? So we got this from someone who's there, boots on the ground, and they called it the 1,000-year flood.
Yeah, well, certainly, just looking at the images, it looks horrendous. I would actually contrast it a wee bit with, in previous times when there was floods, the U.S. media were all over it.
Yeah.
some reason which is completely inexplicable, YouTube, when it happens under this particular regime, media's gone missing pretty much. That's weird, isn't it?
Well, it's not only is it weird, but it's unsettling. It's troubling. It starts to, make one wonder. I mean, the American people pay billions and billions, trillions
Yeah.
in taxes every single year, and
Yeah.
here we have a real life emergency. Something is going on. People have died. We don't know the extent of it in the media. It's a typical media blackout, and it just
Yeah.
makes you wonder, like, what's going on here? Why is it that we allow? And I could get in trouble with this, but why do we allow millions of people who are undocumented to come into this country, and we're giving them credit cards and first time buying houses, a credit, all this crazy stuff. Here are our own people, which are part of the tax base, and we're basically throwing them under the bus.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad to see. It's I hope, like everyone does, I'm sure that as much help and comfort is brought to those people as quickly as possible.
Amen.
Because it's pretty horrific. So just check in there with our producer. Check out the Twitter feed there. There might be an issue. Although I'm sure it's not Elon Musk censoring us. So hey, so look, I'll tell you. I mean, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you, because I know you've got a brand new book out. When we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, there's a few. Yes, there we go. Bring it for a top again. Rungs of exposure. There you go. And there's it up on the screen as well. Rungs of exposure, following the trail of extraterrestrials and the end times. But can we start, if I may, with you in the beginning? I want to talk about in the beginning, because I am really fascinated by, I mean, a lot of us have woken up in the last number of years, LA. The whole COVID thing, which we definitely can't talk about, but it's definitely woken a lot of us up. And one of the things I'm fascinated in is this whole issue of what it talks about in the book in Genesis, and the whole issue of that there were giants on the earth in those days, and can you explain to us in sort of simple way, to my audience, which is a global audience, kind of, can you explain what that really means?
I would love to. But before I jump in there, I'm going to do two things. I forgot to turn my lights on here.
Okay.
Yeah, let me get this one, and then the other one, and I'll circle back.
Let there be light.
Yes. How unprofessional. But here's the deal: if you were going to keep one verse away from the people, it's Genesis 3:15. Genesis 3:15 is the gateway to the entire biblical prophetic narrative.
Right.
It's not taught in the churches. Most pastors who go to seminary have no idea about it. And instead, what we get is this theory called the Sethite theory, or the Sethite paradigm. And that basically says, and I'm jumping ahead, but it basically says that the godly line of Seth married the hoochie mamas of Cain and produced the Nephilim, but that's not what the text says. And when we jump back to Genesis 3:15, we know that the innocence of the garden has just been completely shattered, because Adam and Eve have sided with the dragon, i.e. Satan.
Yep.
They have sided with him. Something cataclysmic happens. They are terrified. When you read the passage, go slow. They're hiding from the Lord for the first time. They're hiding from their creator. Why is that? Because they know something so dramatic and traumatic has happened to them that they are literally terrified. That's why they're hiding. You don't hide unless you're terrified, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're playing a game, they're not playing a game. They're terrified. So the pre-incarnate Jesus is there in the garden. And that itself is a 3-hour conversation. And he says to the dragon, and this is the gateway right here. This is the entire biblical narrative. If we don't understand this, we don't understand what's going on. It's not taught. It's been deliberately obfuscated. Remember, this is written thousands of years ago.
Yes.
And here we are in 2024. Most people have no idea what it says. And it says this: the pre-incarnate Jesus looks at the dragon and says, your seed, your offspring, will be at war, at enmity with the seed, the offspring of the woman. The one coming from the woman will crush your head, you will bruise his heel. David, that's the entire biblical narrative, because it's the move, counter move, move, counter move, move, counter move, all throughout the biblical narrative. And the first question skeptics will say was, well, Why doesn't he just destroy this guy? Because he can't. He could if he wanted to. But the protocols of the Heavenly War, we get glimpses of it, but we're not privy to it. All
Yeah.
we know is that thousands of years after the fact, one person is tapped out, and that person is Abraham. And from his seed, it says right there, from your seed, Abraham, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. So now the dragon knows where it's coming from. But that's thousands of years after that. Genesis 3:15. The seed of a dragon will be at war with the seed of the woman. The offspring of a dragon will be at war with the offspring of the woman. There's a whole chapter on this in this book. Because if we don't get this, we don't get Genesis 3:15, none of it just falls away. 3 chapters later, it says this: the sons of God, the B'nai Ha-Elohim, which always refers to the angelic host, a supernatural entity, Elohim, a supernatural entity. Fallen beings, they have one shot. They try to contaminate the genome, and they almost succeed, except for 8 people. That's not mythos. And so their seed mingles with the seed of the woman, creating this hybrid entity, fallen angel, human woman, right?
Yeah.
The seeds mingle, sperm in the egg mingles, and creates this hybrid known as the Nephilim. And these were giants. They were bloodthirsty. They were cannibalistic. The other thing you keep away from people is the book of Enoch. Don't read the book of Enoch because it's not part of your Bible. Okay. But why does Jude quote it? You don't quote something unless it's part of your, your wheelhouse. But Jude's quoting it because he knows it. Because the book of Enoch, again, tells us exactly what's happening in the seed war. This is, honestly, David, this is a 3-hour conversation. I mean, it really is, because it's so deep. It's so deep. And that seed war continues all throughout history, and it's happening right now.
Yeah, we see, I completely agree with you. And it is important to have this foundational understanding. And certainly the older I get, the more I fully understand that we actually live in a spiritual war. I mean, yes, we have the politics and we have all that stuff, but actually that's almost at the superficial level. At the deeper, at the intrinsic level, it is this war that's been going on, well, since essentially the beginning of time. But can I ask a question on the Elohim themselves? So they were what, fallen angels in what, human form? Well, what was their form?
Well, this is a very deep conversation. They can appear. The Greek word is metaschismatisai. I got this from Russ Dizdar. Metaschismatisai. They can shapeshift. They can appear as an angel of light. They can appear as a Greek god like Apollo. They can appear as whatever they want. They can be male or female. This is what mixes the whole thing in ways that like people have trouble getting their heads around.
Yeah. And these were, because these Elohim, they were fallen angels. So they fell with Satan when God cast them out of heaven. So that's the origin story of who they essentially were. Is that correct?
Yes, but these are extremely powerful entities. They're not human beings. No. They're not. They're in a completely different realm than what we are. Even the fallen ones, they have power to manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. In ways that defy the physics that we know. It's another type of physics which we don't understand. I mean, time goes right out the window with these guys, and they have a very nefarious agenda, which, by the way, hails back to the Genesis 3:15 narrative. That's why it's so important to understand that.
Yes, because by them mating essentially with human females, as you said, then that was to take out essentially, or to corrupt the DNA. Yes, and so confound what God wanted to happen, to confound it but then they had the offspring that they had with the women. They grew, they were the giants, which, as you point out, I mean, in your writings, I mean, there's not a culture, I think, LA on this planet that doesn't have myths of there were giants. Like even in Ireland here, we talk about giants.
I know. I was actually going to be in Ireland for 10 days filming at all the megalithic structures.
I've been to many of them.
They're unbelievable. And the standard archaeological response is, well, we don't know who these people were, and they just got tired of building these things, and so they all went away. We hear this no matter where we go, from Peru to Mexico to Gilgal Raphaim in Israel to Spain, Menga, Spain, Portugal, France, the UK, and Ireland. It's the same story, endlessly repeated. To over here in the Americas, in places like Ohio and America Stonehenge, we have 2 films on America Stonehenge. Just we have. I'll boast, there are 30 films in our catalog that deal with the Nephilim and UFOs, because it's all connected. But that's what people don't get. It's absolutely all connected. And it all goes back to Genesis 3:15 and the seed war, because what's happening in modernity happened thousands of years ago. The same thing is happening. Their seed is mingling with the seed of men, but they are not cleaving. The word cleave is a word that we get in a marriage contract. A man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. No marriage. And that's exactly what we see happening right now in modernity. Men and women are taken. Sperm is taken from the men. Ovum is taken from the women. Hybrids are being made. Why would Jesus warn us that it would be like the days of Noah? You see, this stuff isn't taught in the churches for the most part. And so the people remain ignorant. So whatever reason, I have been tasked with this. And, my hand is on the plow. I'm not looking back. And that's why we've got 30 films and 14 books. But the seed war is happening as we speak. Hybrids are walking amongst us.
And then another question for you, because this interests me as well. I think I know the answer, but you tell me. So the giants, they existed before the flood and after the flood.
Correct.
So, but the Bible tells us that obviously Noah brought his family essentially on the ark. So how did the Nephilim kind of hey everybody, I hope you're watching this. He's showing me the book that answers my question. Okay, sum it up then. Tell us.
And the reason why I wrote the book, because I get this question endlessly. How does it happen? And it's really simple. There's a second incursion, because the angels that were rounded up in the first, in the flood, the angels, those angels, and this is why the book of Enoch is so paramount for understanding. Because Semyaza, the lead guy, goes, I fear you will indeed not to do this thing, and I alone will bear the sin. They know there's a penalty for what they're about to do. They're going to cross a line and mix the seed. They know the penalty. And this is we've got an hour. But the bottom line is, when Jesus dies, where does he go? Where does Jesus go when he dies? He goes to Tartarus. What does he do there? He proclaims to the fallen angels who have been rounded up since the days of Noah, and they are held in prison. Again, how does that work? That's unbelievable. But he tells them, this is it. The cross, it's over. Checkmate, I win. There's a whole other book I wrote, The Cosmic Chess Match, basically about that. Move, counter move, move, counter move, move, counter move. Finally at the cross, he wins. But where does he go? He goes right down to Tartarus and says, no jailbreak. But the dragon, let's go back to the days of Noah, knows that he's got one shot. And this is why the fallen angels come down. They pollute the genome to the point where only 8 people were saved. And then you say, well, how did they come back? Exactly the same way they came the first time. They just come down, they start mingling the seed, and the whole thing happens all over again. It happens in Sodom and Gomorrah. It happened and get this, and this just blows me away, because if we understand Genesis 3:15, which I spent some time talking about, when we get to Sodom and Gomorrah, oh, I get it. I know who's there. I know who's there. And then finally, when we get to the conquest of the Promised Land, the Nephilim tribes are there. Because you remember, Abraham is tapped out. From your seed, Abraham, your seed, there's that word again, seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Okay, we get that. But you're going to go down to Egypt for 400 years until the sin of the Amorites comes into the fullness. Who are the Amorites? Nephilim tribe. So you get Joshua and Caleb and about 3 million Israelis, okay, on the gateway to the Promised Land. I'm going to go down a rabbit trail. Recently, on the ancient altar of Joshua at the gateway to the Promised Land, they found this. This is like a prop. They found a little lead tablet, and they were able to see it and read the writing on the tablet. It's in Proto-Canaanite, very ancient. And it actually mentions the name Yahweh for the first time. The first time. This tablet is about 3,500 years old. And it says this. Remember, this is right at the gateway to the promised land. Cursed, cursed, cursed. Cursed of Yahweh. You will die cursed. Cursed, cursed, cursed. My interpretation, this is not to the people of Israel. This is to the people or the entities, because they're not human. These are the entities that are in Canaan. You've got the Nephilim, the Raphaim,
yes,
the Zamzummim, the Emims. You've got all these different names, which in my opinion denote different genetic characteristics. There are giants. There are giants, but there are also the long necks, the Anakim. Isn't it interesting? Anakim Skywalker. How did they get that? And
I wondered about that. Yeah.
Anakim means long necks. And our work on the elongated skulls in Peru, a little prop here, that's what these guys look like. And what we think is that in order, see that we're all over the map here, but that's okay. Yeah. So this is the foramen magnum right here. That's the foramen magnum. That should be here. It should be in the center of a skull. Let me see if I can make so you can see that. Let me use my finger. It's easier.
Yeah.
It should be right in the middle of a skull. Should be right there. Right in the middle.
Right.
It's not. It's pushed all the way back to the occipital plate. If it's any further back, it's outside the skull. See that? Yeah. So we think this is our hypothesis, but we think there was a long neck to compensate for the balancing of the head. That's conjecture. We are still working on, the ongoing research with these very enigmatic skulls. In my opinion, these might be the Horites, because we know this. Just recently in 2019, I was down there, and an archaeologist took us into this place in Paracas called the Reserve, and he took us to this one area where the remnants of their dwellings still existed. They go down into the earth, Dave, down into the earth. And my first question, well, how did they see? And the archaeologist goes, well, we don't know. We have no idea how they see. Did they see in the dark? Were there mirrors? Did you see any polished? Were there fires or prints on the ceiling? No. So somehow they could see in the dark, and that's what we think. See the orbits right here? The orbits in the eyes?
Yeah.
Those right here. Those are about 25% larger than a normal human being.
Oh, yeah.
So we believe that these guys more than likely had night vision. That's conjecture, but that's why we're on the trail, and that's why we're studying. So circling back to the promised land, when they come in, the Nephilim tribes are there. I mean, this is the seed war on steroids. Yeah. It's not genocide, because the entities in the promised land have no soul. They are soulless. They have no soul. They have no soul.
Yeah.
Only God can give a soul. So even though the seed is mixing, there's no soul. They are soulless. They are in a fixed state, And so this is really deep, but the seed is mingling, and the seed mingles all through history. The seed is mingling now, and that's why circling back to the book, that's why in the book we talk about abductions. We talk about the abductions, the hybrids, it's all there, because this is what's going on in modernity.
Well, as I said, we're going to jump into your book in a second, but I just want to understand. So I followed everything you've said so far, and I'm right in saying I think that, for example, if we look at modern day Gaza, for example, that's an area where I'm right in thinking where they were prominent, the giants.
The Nephilim were in Gaza. And I'll blow your listeners right out of the water. I'm not making this up. Yeah. When Joshua and Caleb go in to the promised land, they destroy the Nephilim tribes. But as they're doing this, the Nephilim tribes realize that they're getting their butts kicked. So they flee. And this is why on the shores of North Africa, the Roman historian Procopius found a stele. And it said, we are they who have fled from the face of Joshua, the robber, the son of Nun. What's that doing on the North Shore of Africa? Because there was a diaspora. They came through the North Shore of Africa. They went up into the Mediterranean. They went to Malta and Gozo and Sicily, and I mean all throughout Europe. I mean, and I've followed the trail. That's one of my films. We've been in Spain, Portugal, France, England, and then Ireland, and then they come over to the New World. not making this stuff up. I'm
Mm,
not.
No, 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 understand, no, no, understand. Yeah,
So
because the history of all those places you've just talked about does recognize. Now, I see people asking questions here. So, right, so we need to make sure that we kind of make this totally normie friendly, LA, because not everyone's I mean, I've been reading about this, because what I found is, and I'll say this to everybody: if you start to understand the sort of stuff that LA has been talking about, your understanding of the Bible itself becomes,
opens up.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really opens up.
it makes it even more relevant, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, and like you, I mean, I sometimes think, how come that these things were not spoken of when I, in my early years, when you're being sort of basically taught the Bible, so to speak. This has been kind of glanced over, which is worrying, really, because I think we should be taught these things. We should understand exactly the forever war, because that's what you were talking about. That's the point in this one, folks. It's a forever war. It started at the beginning, it goes on to the end. But this is so the Nephilim. So the Nephilim. This is the name for when we talk about Nephilim, we're talking about the giants, the offspring of essentially evil spirits, evil angels, however you want to call it. But my thing is, so historically we can see it, folks. The evidence is there.
Yeah.
And it links into so many other things as well. That's why it's important. But there's no doubt about it. There's not one civilization in this world. You mentioned Peru, South America. You go out to Asia. You go wherever, and there's the constant recurring myth of giants.
Mm-hmm.
People have to wonder about that. People should question that. It's just a universal myth. But no, it's more like a universal truth. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when that diaspora happens, when they're pushed out of the promised land,
Yeah.
and circling back into Gaza, right?
Yes.
In the biblical prophetic narrative, it states this, that Joshua and Caleb, when the armies of Israel came in, they did not go into Gaza. They left it untouched.
It's interesting.
Where's all the trouble coming from? Gaza.
Yes, because is this because essentially the evil
There's a spirit.
spirit
That's there.
it's still there? Is that what you would think?
We're not talking about the people.
No, it's the spirit.
People are influenced by the spiritual entity that has never been deposed from that region, from that land. Some of you out there will scoff at this because you don't understand what the supernatural world is about, or your view has a very truncated view of the supernatural, or you don't believe in the supernatural world at all. I have encountered twice in my 44 years of being born again and spirit filled a territorial spirit. All I can tell you, you don't want to mess with it. You do not want to mess with it. Yes, I have the authority over it. I get all that. But when this thing came at me in Fatima, Portugal, okay, I threw everything I knew in my spiritual warfare quiver. I could not shake it. I could not shake it. And so I cried out to the Lord. I said, I'm leaving in the morning. I'm done. I can't handle this. And the Holy Spirit said to me, trust the process at 3 o'clock in the morning.
So there are parts of this world, physical parts of this world, Gaza, which is essentially territory that is still, I'm trying to choose the right word, where these things, this spirit still prevails.
Absolutely. All day long.
Yeah. See, I think this is important, folks, because I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't believe there's no such thing as coincidences in my world. Things happen, and it's not coincidental that we're seeing what we're seeing, for example, in Gaza. And I think and having the spiritual insight into it, I think actually really helps us understand kind of what's going on, because it helps explain. But then, okay, so then I want to move into your book now, your new book. I should say, I mean, when I say your book, you're an extremely prolific author. I have had a good look through your back catalogue. Ordinarily, when people come to listen to this, they say to me, You've cost us so much money, David, because it's always so interesting. They wanna buy the stuff and read the stuff. And Ella, you've got a huge a body of work on all this topic, which to me is absolutely foundational, and it's important. So look, there's loads of stuff, folks, you can check out and get all the detail that LA has been managed to compile. But if we fast forward to the new book, which we're going to do, so in a second, it's going to be brought up here as we rapidly move back to rungs of disclosure. Okay, so and this is to do with the ET side of things it fascinates me all. It really is fascinating. So, okay, what are the rungs of disclosure? First question.
So here's the deal. In 1947, something crashed outside Roswell. We actually have two films.
Yeah,
I have been to the debris field myself, and I'll show you what the metal looks like. And I want to thank Frank and Chuck Sikowski, Frank Kimmel and Chuck Sikowski, who brought us to the debris field. See that? That's the metal in my hand. We discovered that. Frank discovered it with his metal detector about 8 inches below the surface.
Yeah.
They had it tested. It's an aluminum alloy, but it doesn't match anything. Doesn't match anything we have.
Okay.
And so it also shows that it's been subjected to some sort of high heat, some sort of trauma that twisted the metal. So we believe, I mean, we found this 70 years after the fact. Roswell 1947 is the beginning of the government cover-up, the deliberate obfuscation. Now, when they first came out with this, when they first came out with it, July 8th, the Roswell Daily said this right here: RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. And then in the paper, they have an eyewitness testimony who talks about this thing coming in, all lit up. I've got props all over the place here. It came in, it was all lit up, but it was just, and he describes it like two saucers being put together, just like this, exactly what you said. Okay, it was all lit up, came in at 400 to 500 miles an hour, and it was going about 1,500 feet above, the surface of the Earth. The next day, they come out and they say this. General Ramey, where is it? Oh, yeah. Ramey says excitement not justified. And that begins the decades of deliberate obfuscation until the first rung on the ladder of disclosure happens. That's 2017, Tucker Carlson show. And Tucker, I used to watch him. He was on Fox News, and I still watch him today.
He's good.
I just think he's great, and he's a straight shooter. But the bottom line is he starts off, it's a Friday night, last 5-minute segment. And he goes, UFOs used to be the stuff of tinfoil hat wearing people and conspiracy theorists, but maybe we shouldn't think that anymore. Commander David Fravor, former F-18 pilot, joins us tonight, and he had an encounter, I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, with a tic-tac-shaped object over the Pacific Ocean. Commander David Fravor, welcome to the show. So what you see is Tucker here, Commander David Fravor in the center, and then over here, so it's a triptych, 3 different camera angles going at the same time. You see the tic-tac-shaped object moving around, which is like, oh my gosh, which was at one time classified. So the beginning begs the question, how does David Fravor, Commander David Fravor, wind up on Tucker Carlson show? Who picks up the phone and decides, this guy's a whistleblower, we're going to go with this thing. So they go with it. And, Fravor, when asked, he looks right at the camera. Tucker Carlson asks, where do you think this is from? Is it the Chicons, is it the Russians, somebody is one of ours? Commander David Fravor goes, no, absolutely not. When the thing left, it shot out away from him like a bullet out of a gun, 50 miles in 2 seconds. The G-forces would crush a human being. So what's happening, in my opinion, and this is the work of Bob Lazar, when the ship goes like this, there's a gravity wave which pulls the ship. And this gravity wave, and I got this from Bob Lazar, is bending space and time as we know it. So the craft is moving, but it's being pulled. So space and time are being interrupted, are being changed. The craft is no longer subject to the laws of gravity as we know them, because the gravity wave is bending space-time. It's right out of right out of Einstein or even quantum physics. It's beyond my pay grade, and no one really knows how it works. But Bob Lazar was at Area 51, and he back engineered the propulsion system. He's never changed his stories. I saw him in the early 90s, 94, 95.
Yeah.
At a UFO conference out near Area 51 at the Little Alien, and I met him and talked to him briefly. I haven't seen him since. But the bottom line is that was the first rung. Commander David Fravor is the first rung on the ladder of disclosure, because all of a sudden, you have an F-18 pilot who is impeccable. I mean, his character, he's the best of the best of the best. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah, but since 1947 to then, to 2017, 2018, Tucker Carlson, I mean, clearly the information was being suppressed.
Absolutely.
So how come it suddenly was okay? You don't, as you say, you don't just go on Fox News. You don't just get on with Tucker. So how do you think that? How did that come about, or what do you think the power behind it was?
That's the $64,000 question. There seems to be a group of individuals that want this information out. They feel, and this is where all the whistleblowers come from. I'm reading Luis Elizondo's book, Eminent, which is just a fantastic read. And he and I have gone down sort of a same path from two different directions. We're both ufologists. We've been studying this. My perspective is maybe, and I haven't finished the book yet, so I'm not sure, but my perspective might differ with Mr. Elizondo's a little bit, but we both know that the phenomenon is absolutely real. It's burgeoning and it's not going away. Somebody, and I think, and this is conjecture, so it's conjecture, but this is what I think. There are two groups within the deep state, the Pentagon. Yeah. One group, keep the kibosh, keep the lid on this thing. Nobody deny, obfuscate, ridicule, which is what they've been doing since 1947. Oh, these people are crackpots. They're all kooks, blah, blah, blah. The other group's going, we can't do this anymore because this thing is heating up. Something's about to happen. We've got to let not only the American people, but the people of the world know that the phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. So you've got two groups. Now, that's conjecture. There's also the element of allegedly the Collins elite, and Luis Elizondo speaks about this in his book, that this select group of people who are supposedly Christians within the Pentagon, religious fundamentalists, as it were, whatever that means, because that's a very broad definition. Want this suppressed, want it down. So somebody somewhere is blowing the whistle, and one of the last rungs on the ladder of disclosure. Yeah. When this happened, Dave, I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I actually got the clip down from YouTube, and I was able to show it at conferences. And it's the next to the last chapter, almost, chapter 16, the 15th rung on the ladder. And it's David Grush in the halls of Congress. So when people come up to me and go, well, isn't this stuff kind of kooky? I go, okay, you can call me whatever you want. I could care less. But your government, and I got this from Lou Elizondo when he was on 60 Minutes, because I'm just copying his answer, because I thought Lou Elizondo's answer was absolutely incredible. Yeah. Goes, what do you think about this, Lou? And Lou said, who cares what I think? This is what your government is saying. And I used the same line. Doesn't matter what L.A. Marzulli says anymore. Your government, the halls of Congress, a whistleblower, David Grush, is under oath in Congress, and he's being asked, do we have crashed craft? Basically, he says yes. And then Representative Nancy Mace from South Carolina comes up with a follow-up question. And she says, did we recover bodies from these crafts? David Grush looks right up at her, and I'm a student of body language. He is telling the truth as he knows it. He looks right up at her and he says, yes, we retrieved biologics. She follows up with another question. Were these biologics human or non-human? And this is I fell out of my chair when I saw this. He goes, non-human biologics. There it is. So, the churches can laugh and scoff. The naysayers can laugh and scoff. And you remember, he had hit pieces. David Grush had all sorts. They came at him with both barrels, baby. Get this guy, try to discredit him, and that's how the game is played. Ad hominem attack, ad hominem attack, Why don't we sit down and talk about this like human beings? Something's going on. Quit lying to us. Something's going on.
Well, okay. So on the UFOs themselves and the extraterrestrial craft. So you're saying that it's your view that they are real, or they okay? Who made them? Who put them together? Who engineered them?
There's the next book that will come out probably next year sometime. It's called Supernatural Technology in the Bible. Once again, most Christians never think about this stuff. They don't go there, but there's technology, supernatural technology. I'll just give you one example, which is the first chapter in the book. So Adam and Eve are booted out of the garden.
Yeah.
And the Lord, the Elohim, and people go, oh, see, there's more than one God. No, calm down. Elohim, it just means spiritual entity. 2 cherubim are placed at the gateway to Eden.
Yeah.
On the east gate. So the north, south, and west gates are not guarded. We don't know why, but the Father God doesn't need to guard those. But the east gate is at the opening, an interdimensional gateway, a portal we don't know. So the cherubim are here, the very powerful angels. But guess what? In between them is a flaming sword that turns every which way. Go read it for yourselves.
Yeah.
So here's the flaming sword. Vroom, 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 vroom.
Yeah.
It's a lightsaber. You can tell, oh, LA, you're just right. What is a flaming sword? It is, in fact, some sort of a lightsaber. Remember, the people that are Moses writing this, he's looking at this somehow, and he's trying to process it, and he's not going to call it a lightsaber. He knows of a sword.
Yeah.
He knows of fire. It's a flaming sword that turns every which way by itself. That's technology. That's technology. So these craft, okay, there's technology, and both the fallen ones and the good ones use them. And I have a whole theory as to why we have the craft, because they're going from one dimension into another.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
They're coming from one dimension, and this is the way they can pop in and pop out through through the portals.
Right. So, well, I see it the same. But then the myth is, or the common narrative is, oh, no, they're coming from Mars. They're coming from, the interstellar space. I don't think that at all. I think that's a cover story. What do you think?
First of all, I read an article recently about there are physicists way beyond my pay grade, folks, but they are positing that we are living in a holographic universe. Yay! Because that's what I believe too.
Right.
Because we know from the biblical narrative that Father God rolls up the heavens like a scroll. Oh, that's just metaphor. He can't possibly do that. Excuse me. No one knows. Nobody knows where planet Earth is. If the United States of America is analogous to the entire universe, is planet Earth in Walla Walla, Michigan, Detroit, Dallas, Texas, Miami, Los Angeles? Nobody knows where we are. No one knows. Dave, right now, you're in your little three-dimensional biological bodysuit. I'm in my little three-dimensional biological bodysuit. For the most time, it works really well. Nobody knows where you are or where I am right now. How does my consciousness, how does my conscious, excuse me, how does my spirit and soul interact with this little three-dimensional bodysuit that I find myself in right now? How does that work? Nobody knows. Nobody knows where you are, where I am, and how it interfaces with, how consciousness interfaces with this little suit that I'm in. Nobody knows. So that should keep everybody up at night, but it doesn't, because we're used to being in these little biological bodysuits like this. So the bottom line is, I do not believe that these are extraterrestrials from Epsilon Eridani, as Gary likes to call it, or Zeta Reticuli. These are interdimensional entities who are coming in from gateways and portals into our atmosphere. They come through a gateway, they come through a portal. I'll give you one biblical example. Daniel prays, I need some help. I need some help. I need some help. An angel, a good guy, is dispatched. This is the war. People don't get this. This is one of the few glimpses in the biblical prophetic narrative where we get the heavenly war thing. So the angel tries to get through to Daniel. He can't. The prince of Persia, Iran, the prince of Persia is still holding him back. He can't get through. Can't get through. He's restrained for 21 days. Finally, the angel goes, okay, I got to get some reinforcements. He goes back and he gets Michael and some other angels, and they come through. How do they fight? We don't know. How long do they fight? We don't know. Can they be wounded? We don't know. But I would say yes. They can't be killed, but perhaps they can be wounded, because we know that in the book of Revelation, Michael fights with the devil and his angels. The devil and his angels are overcome. They're cast to earth. How are they overcome? They're not thumb wrestling up there. Something's got to happen. And I think they can be wounded. They cannot be killed, but I think they can be wounded. That's conjecture, total conjecture. But that's what I think. So the bottom line is, these entities are coming in from another dimension, i.e. the second heaven. They have a very nefarious agenda. They are not our friendly, warm space brothers. They are certainly not our progenitors. But that's the lie that is being promulgated over and over and over again. That these, we were seeded here by a race of advanced extraterrestrials. That, of course, is panspermia. They created all life on this planet. They started the world's civilizations, the world's religions. Now at this critical juncture in human history, ET is back to usher mankind into a golden age. That's the last chapter of the book. I penned this. I wrote about this in 1999. I call it the coming great deception. And here's why.
Yes.
And I'm not going to tell you, you got to read the book. I'm not going to tell you.
No spoiler alert. Yeah.
But I will tell you this, that we are at a moment in time which is unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. And we know from the biblical prophetic narrative, this is future, that there's going to be a one world government and a one world religion. This begs the question, how do we get there? Right now, the earth is so divided, so disparate, if I can use that word, globally. How's this going to happen? Well, how do you think it's going to happen? When the space brothers show up and they say, we created all life in this universe, we seeded man here, we genetically manipulated early man, we started the world's civilizations, the world's religions. Now at this critical juncture, we're here to usher mankind into a golden age. And I will tell you this, we are on the cusp of, maybe on the cusp of seeing that actually happen because of what's going on a global level.
Have you ever seen a UFO yourself? You have? Because I have. Once.
I have too. I've seen three.
I saw totally I have a little place on the very north coast of the island of Ireland, right at the very top.
Wow.
And it's a black sky, a very dark sky. And I can remember still about 20 years ago with my family, and we'd gone out for a little walk late in the evening, the four of us, and we saw something I don't understand. It did not behave just above the little village like anything I've ever seen. It seemed to go about and then it vumped off. And I mean, I can't ever explain it. I've remembered it ever since. I thought it was really strange. But you've seen three such instances, so that's interesting. And
the very first one, I was a Boy Scout. I was 12 years old. I was walking up a trail with three other boys. It was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky, Camp Horseshoe, Rising Sun, Maryland. And the lead boy goes, wow, what's that? And the other boys go, wow, what is that? And I go, where? And they point up there. And above me is a silver disc. About when, if you hold your hand out like this in front of you, it was a good distance away, about like this.
Yeah.
I'll show you exactly the size of it. It's about like this.
Yeah.
Just about like that. And just hovering there. The sun was glinting off of it. This thing shot up like this. Foink, gone. Just gone. Just like that, gone. We go running back to camp. We saw a UFO. We saw a flying saucer. By the evening meal, this was lunch. By the evening meal, the other three boys denied that they had ever seen anything. This was my first lesson into herd mentality.
Yeah.
People will lie just to remain part of the herd. Oh, you didn't see that? I'm going, I know exactly what I saw. The second one, we were driving up Pacific Coast Highway after a wonderful dinner, and in front of us there was a light. And I'll just use some props like this. So there was like a light in the sky like this. and it was just kind of sitting there. And I go, wow, what's that? My wife was driving, and she goes, well, that's just probably an airplane coming in. I go, Peg, first of all, it's too low. Second of all, it's not moving. Third of all, the airplanes don't come in this way. Well, maybe
Yeah.
it's a helicopter. So all of a sudden, this would happen. We get boom, and this other light appears right over it. Let me try to do this a little better for you.
Yeah.
Like this, and slowly descends and disappears like that. Both lights disappear. And I'm going, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, boom, there it is again. And then another object comes down like this, goes into the thing, and it disappears. We watched it do it 3 times. The other one, the third one, was more recent. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. We're driving in Oklahoma on a place called the John Kilpatrick Turnpike. It's out in the middle of nowhere, the section that we were at. No houses around, woods on both sides. And you're kind of down like this. So you come down the hill, and now you're in this one stretch. And my wife goes, I'm driving. She's in the passenger seat. Wow, what's that? And I look over, I see this light that's kind of pacing the car. We're here, the light's over here. So let me see. I don't have that. So we're here.
Yeah.
The light's over here, and it's pacing us as we're going down like this. And I go, well, it's probably one of those spotlights from a car dealership, to I call it UFO brain fog, because we're not thinking right. First of all, there's no car dealerships near there. Second of all, we're below, the city's over here, and it's not a spotlight that's pacing the car like this. Sorry, it's not that. And it does this. I never saw the craft, but I saw the light. And it's bright, really bright, and lighting up the whole thing. It's pacing us. So my wife, Peggy, goes, we need to pray right now. So I immediately, rebuked it in the name of Jesus. Boom, shot away, just like that. Just like that, shot away and was gone. And that's the deal. Actually, we have one of our mugs, one of my sayings, but I digress. But one of the other mugs says, rebuke first and ask questions later. Because we need to rebuke first and ask questions later, which is finally what we did. But when we see something like this, we're overwhelmed by it. And that's why we give it attention.
Yeah, well, that actually echoes with my experience. Was I couldn't understand it, didn't want to think it was anything unusual. But it obviously it was. It didn't behave like anything I've ever seen. But here's a question. Do you think that the governments, especially your government, the US government, do you think they have some of this technology that they also are responsible?
100%.
Yeah.
In our Roswell film, and both of these, see, another shameless plug. But you guys need to do your homework. I have an hour here. I mean, these films alone are like 2.5 hours worth of information. And then of course, we got the book. But in Roswell, we actually got in the Hangar 84, the enigmatic Hangar 84, where all the records allegedly came in. There's a guy by the name of Walter G. Haught, who was there in 1947. He has a deathbed affidavit, and he basically says not to be opened until after I'm dead. So Haught dies, and then they open up the affidavit, and he says, I was there in Hangar 84. They took me in. I was with other, higher ups, and the craft was there at Hangar 84. I saw it. It was about 20 feet in diameter. There were bodies under a tarp. I saw them too. So it all went to Wright Pat. There's no doubt about that. Wright-Patterson Field. At the time, it was just called Wright Field. Patterson was added. The name Patterson was added later. Wright being the Wright brothers. So everything was sent to them, to Wright Pat, and they back engineered it. That brings us to Bob Lazar talking about the back engineering of element 115, which creates the gravity wave and all this other stuff. They've had it.
But okay, and I would imagine if the U.S. government has it, I would suspect certain other governments maybe have some knowledge, some of this as well. But here's the thing also. So in a case like that, where the craft had crashed and the occupants had presumably been killed, but how can they have been killed if they were essentially, fallen angels, Nephilim?
They're not.
What are they then?
Okay, this took years for me to unpack. It took years, and I've got experiencers who have vetted this, who look at this phenomenon in a completely different paradigm than I do. You've got the disembodied spirits. This takes a while to unpack. You've got the Nephilim are the progeny of fallen angels and earth human women, creating a hybrid known as the Nephilim.
Yes.
The Nephilim were destroyed in the flood. The book of Enoch, if you're going to keep one book away from the people, don't read Enoch. Oh, that's going to poison your mind. Read the book of Enoch.
Yeah, read it. I agree. Yeah, read it. Yeah.
Read it several times. The disembodied spirits of a Nephilim become the demons that wander the earth.
Yeah.
A demon cannot manifest in our reality unless it inhabits a person or an animal or an object. This is why when you're in foreign countries, never ever take masks or anything, because you don't know what's been put on that or what might be in it or what might be attached to that. Some of you out there are already laughing about this. When I was down in Peru and handled these skulls, I want to thank my friend Brian Forrester for setting all that up, the late Senior Juan Navarro. When I was down there handling these things, I had some hitchhikers come back with me, which I really didn't want. I had hitchhikers, spiritual entities, because I opened myself up to this by handling them. I'm not making this up. Some of you out there are, Marzulli, blah, blah, blah. Think what you want to think. I've lived it, and I know what I'm talking about. So these entities, the demons, are disembodied. They need something to go into in order to manifest here on the planet. So the dragon knows this. Satan knows this. So what does he do? He creates a biological suit, an avatar. He creates an avatar. So the demons, the wandering spirits, were at one time Nephilim, those demons can inhabit those suits and then manifest in this dimension. What's the proof text for this? The proof text is the experiencers that I've talked to. Whitley Strieber talks about opening a drawer on the ship and seeing the grays stacked up like this. Another woman, her name is Dolly, talking about the grays like chairs being stacked up. Our book that we published, Karen Wilkinson's Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, does the same thing. Talks about, she was taken from the time she was 5 years old. She was impregnated by them 3 different times. There's a chapter that she let me use in Rungs of Disclosure. So I mean, this is my life's work, David. I mean, this is what.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. It's
what we've been doing forever.
I'll tell you what. I mean, as you said, 60 minutes is definitely not going to be long enough. But at least it's a starting point. That's the way I would look upon it, and it's because it's such a vast area. So because the issue of abduction, then, so they do abduct. Is that correct? People, you would believe people have been abducted.
Absolutely. Remember we talked about Genesis 3:15.
Yes.
The seed, the mingling of the seed. Your seed, your offspring will be at war with the offspring of the woman. Well, then jump back up to Daniel again. This is thousands of years ago. And the angel goes, Daniel, go your way, seal up the words in this book until the time of the end. The time of the end will look like this. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. Well, until modernity, no one was running to and fro over the face of the earth. Now, as we are talking, thousands of planes are all over the place. Knowledge increases exponentially. We are in the window of time. Plus, Israel, that's right, I said it, Israel has been gathered back into its ancient homeland. First time since 2,000 years. That starts the whole clock ticking. That's when, just think about this, 1945, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 47, Roswell. Why Roswell? Because Roswell was the home of the 509th Bombing Group, who was the only nuclear-capable bombing group on the planet. They were the guys that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's why Roswell's there. That could be their starting card. That's the punchline of the book. So I'm not going to give it away. So 45 is the atomic bomb. 47 is Roswell. 48, Israel becomes a nation. There's an ancient prophetic text. It's from a prophet by the name of Amos. Amos chapter 9, 14, and 15. It says this: I will gather the captives of my people Israel. I will gather the captives of my people Israel. They will build the waste cities and inhabit them. They will plant vineyards and drink the wine from them. They will also plant gardens and eat the fruit from them. I will plant them in their land, and never again will they be pulled up out of the land I have given them, says the Lord your God. That's written thousands of years ago. That did not happen until 1948. They did build the waste cities. I have been to Israel. I have seen the vineyards. I have drunk the wine. I have seen and eaten the vegetables that grow from, and they export it. This is it. They'll never again be pulled out. This is why we're in this window of time that's absolutely unprecedented. So the phenomenon is real, burgeoning. It's not going away. And, you know, Roswell was as we circling back to the very beginning, was the beginning of the cover-up. But now we're in a period of time that is, it's going through the roof. And I think we're close to full-blown disclosure.
It's interesting. So actually, someone's just asked, are any of the books audible? Can people buy like an audible version of them?
We are working on this one as an audible book. Not yet. Give me a few months. But yeah, we're going to start doing that with all of them. We need to, because I understand people, you know, wear the headphones, you know, the earbuds, and off you go. And it's in some ways it's quicker because you can go twice speed, and you know, now you're speed reading and you're getting
exactly. The thing is, I mean, look, this hour is just absolutely, it's gone by faster than a UFO, and disappearing into the heavens. And we've only just skimmed the absolute surface. But I say I found it really interesting, and I hope those that have listened and will watch this and all the rest of it, I hope you'll find, I mean, we're tackling, as Ella, you said it so well at the beginning, I mean, this is deep stuff. And really, it's a bit superficial to go through it in 60 minutes, but that's roughly what we have, you know. So what I would say is, if you've enjoyed it, I'd love to bring you back and we can talk some more at another time. But look, rungs of disclosure, following the trail of extraterrestrials and end times, because it's all linked in. And what I love about this, LA, as well, is it is all biblical based. Everything, and that's my worldview. Everything, you know, is that's where the everything is basically.
I agree.
So Betty, thanks very much for your kind comments, by the way. But you know, I really want to thank you for giving us your time. Thanks for all the props. I love the props, great stuff. And no, but it's good because it's visual as well. People can see stuff, you know.
Sure.
And as I say, I do think that I would certainly recommend everyone check out LA's all his back catalog, all his works, particularly the new one as well, because it'll help your knowledge. It will help you guys gain better insight into the everyday stuff as well that we go through. So look, thanks again, LA. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I want to thank you.
Come back. Love to.
Yeah, and I'd love you to come back. And as I said, there's loads of stuff we didn't have the time to get into, but we can at another time. I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody on all the different streams. Thanks for tuning in to LA and myself, folks. And I shall return later in the week. That's it from LA and myself. Good night.